नमस्कार. रयत शिक्षण संस्था सातारा रोज प्रोजेक्ट 2021 to 22 11th science conducted by Yeshwantrao Chauhan Institute of Science Satara. My name is Dinesh Subhashrao Kulkarni, MSc B.Ed, junior college teacher. Subject is chemistry. In our last lecture, we have discussed about the accuracy and precision. Okay, then the next point is that is the determination of molecular formula. In that molecular formula, the number of atoms are there, and that number of atoms which is constituent to build an element in that molecules. Okay, then the particular definition of molecular formula. The molecular formula of a compound is the formula which indicates the actual number of the atoms, or we can say that is the actual number of the atoms of the constituent element in a molecules. Means the molecular formula is nothing but the number of atoms which is included in that particular molecules. Then in the molecular formula is the combination of, the molecular formula is the combination of number of atoms of the constituent elements. Okay, in the example, like the elements is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, etc. Then the molecular formula obtained from experimentally determined by value of percent elemental composition and molar mass of that particular compound. Here, new compounds are formed. Then the percentage or value of percent of particular elements of that compositions. Okay, in that compositions, the actual number of elements are present in that particular molecules. Then the molar mass also indicates the molecular formula. In that molar mass, the particular compound having a X molar mass, then the molar mass which is have the number of constituent element which is present in that particular molecules. Then next point is percent compositions and empirical formula. In that molecular formula, the percent compositions and empirical formula, which is important point here discussed. The compounds are formed by chemical combinations are different elements. Means what? The different elements is the also carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and also nitrogen. First of all, the definition of empirical formula is, it is the simplest ratio of atoms of the constituent elements in a molecules is called as the empirical formula of that compound. Here, in that empirical formula, the empirical formula means, or in the general way or in a simple form, the empirical formula is the constituent or is the combination of elements which is included in that molecules, which is called as the empirical formula. Okay, and in that empirical formula, the molecular formula can be obtained by if the molecular or molar mass which is known. Then suppose what is the difference between empirical formula and the molecular formula? Here in that molecular formula, the molecular formula which is known by only the molar mass is known. Then the empirical formula, in that empirical formula, the number of atoms of that constituent element which is present in that molecules, which is called as the empirical formula. Then the 2.5, that is the chemical reaction and stoichiometric calculations. Then suppose the molecular formula which is given and addition of molecular formula of molecules, then having the chemical reactions. म्हणजेच काय, सपोज मॉलिक्युलर फॉर्म्युला मिळाल्यानंतर जर त्या पर्टिक्युलर मॉलिक्युलचं जर रिॲक्शन आपण केली, ओके, केमिकल रिॲक्शन केल्यानंतर तर सपोज केमिकल रिॲक्शनच्या डावीकडे जो काही एलिमेंट्स असतात किंवा जो काही मॉलिक्युल असतो विच इज कॉल्ड ॲज द रिएजंट, आणि फॉरवर्ड ॲडोच्या राईट साइडला ज्या काही गोष्टी असतात विच इज कॉल्ड ॲज द product. Okay, these chemical reactions and stoichiometric calculations we are discussed in that particular video. Then calculations which is based on the balanced chemical equations are known as stoichiometric calculations. Means what? A particular balanced chemical equations which known as stoichiometric calculations are there. Okay, then it supplies the following informations useful for solving the problems based on the chemical equations. Okay, in that chemical equations, 2 to 3 points are very important to solve the stoichiometric calculations and also chemical reactions in the chemical equations. Okay, then solving the problems based on the chemical equations, these 2 to 3 points are very important. Then first point, it indicates the number of moles of the reactants which is involved in a chemical reactions and also number of moles of the product which is formed in a right side of that chemical reactions. Okay, this is the first point. Then the next point is relative mass of that reactant and the relative mass of that product which is linked with each other with a chemical changes. Then the relation between the volume of that reactant and product at STP. The STP stands for the standard temperature and also pressures. Means what? Here the relation between volume of that reactant, here suppose the volume of that reactant which is in a gaseous phase, then the product also is in gaseous phase. In another example, in the relation between volume of that reactant, the reactant is in a liquid phase, then the product also is in liquid phase. In another way, the relation between the volume of the reactant which is in a solid phase and also the product which is also in a solid phase at standard temperature and pressure. We can say that at STP. The stoichiometric problems. Okay, in their stoichiometric problems, the stoichiometric problems which is based on stoichiometric of the following types. Okay, in that following types, the stoichiometric problems based on mass relationship, then the stoichiometric problems based on mass volume relationship, and last one, the problems based on volume relationships. Okay, the steps are given in the stoichiometric problems. Here, first step is, that is the write down the balanced equation representing the chemical reactions. Then we can say that in a previous slide, here in that arrow, okay, in that forward arrow, left side which is indicating the reactants and right side indicating the products. Okay, means what? The write down, the first step is the write down the balanced equation representing the chemical reactions. Then next point is write the number of moles in a reactant side also and also product side. And relative mass or also volumes of the reactant and product below the respective formulae. Means the first of all write down the chemical reactions, and that chemical reactions we can write below that reactant and also product. We can write the relative mass of that particular volume in the number of moles in that particular reactant and also product. Okay, third point is in the relative mass and also volume, which is calculated from the respective formula, that is the mass referring the condition at STP. Okay. Then apply the unitary method to calculate unknown factor which is required to that problems. Okay, these are 4 steps to solving the problems based on stoichiometric problems. Okay, and in that problems, the problems which is having 3 types, that is the problem based on mass-mass relationship, problems based on mass-volume relationship, problems based on the volume-volume relationship. म्हणजेच काय, हे जे 4 स्टेप्स स्टॉइचियोमेट्रिक प्रॉब्लेम्स मध्ये सांगितलेली आहेत, त्यामध्ये पहिल्यांदा सुरुवातीला तुम्हाला काय करायचंय, केमिकल रिएक्शन लिहायची. केमिकल रिएक्शन दिल्याच्या नंतर त्या रिएक्टंटच्या खाली आणि प्रॉडक्टच्या खाली तुम्हाला नंबर ऑफ मोल्स लिहायचे आहेत. रिएक्टंटची नंबर ऑफ मोल्स किती आहेत, त्यानंतर तसेच प्रॉडक्टचे नंबर ऑफ मोल्स किती आहेत. देन इन द रिलेटिव्ह मास, ओके, आणि व्हॉल्यूम ते कॅल्क्युलेटर करत असताना कंडिशन तुम्हाला कोणती यूज करायची, तिथे कंडिशन यूज करायची at STP, that is called as the at standard temperature and also pressure, and त्यासाठी apply the unitary method to calculate these particular types of problems and required to unknown factor. In that analytical chemistry or introduction to analytical chemistry, the 2.6 is the very important point with the help of analytical chemistry, which is a limiting reagent. Okay, these limiting reagents means what? Limiting reagent म्हणजे काय? तर limiting reagent नावावरूनच तुम्हाला याची डेफिनेशन लक्षात येऊन जाईल. In that limiting reagent, we can say that the reactant which gets consumed and limit of that amount which is product which is formed, which is called as the limiting reagent. म्हणजेच काय, पर्टिक्युलर रिएक्टंट हा कंझ्युम्ड होतो आणि त्यानंतर लिमिटेड अमाउंट ऑफ प्रॉडक्ट हा फॉर्म होतो, त्यालाच आपण काय असं म्हणायचं, लिमिटिंग रिएजंट. Here, in that limiting reagent, the reactant which is present in a lesser amount and then it's consumed after some times. Here, no further reactions takes place. Then, whatever may be amount of left of the reactant which is present and limited amount of product is formed, which is also called as, or which is known as, limiting reactant or limiting reagent. Okay, in that limiting reagent, okay, consider the reactions like nitrogen dioxide. In that nitrogen dioxide, the nitrogen dioxide from nitric oxide means what? The NO2 from NO and oxygen. Here 2 times NO in gaseous phase plus O2 in gaseous phase. Okay, I indicate with that with the help of arrow on that slide. Here 2 NO in gaseous phase plus O2 in gaseous phase, then gives forward arrow and formation of 2 times NO2 in gaseous phase. In above reactions, okay, this is the simple forward reaction is there. In that simple forward reactions or in that above reactions, the NO, that is the nitric oxide, is the limiting reagent, and oxygen, okay, O2 is in excess amount of reagent which is present in that reagent side or reactant side, and then forward arrow gives and formation of NO2 in the particular reactions, and the NO2 which is called as the limiting reagent. Here we will stop. The remaining part of that chapter, which is included in a next lecture.